You have probably agreed with something you did not believe because everyone else in the room seemed certain. Maybe you stayed quiet, maybe you laughed, maybe you decided it was not worth the conflict. Because disagreeing does something dangerous. It makes you visible. In Greek mythology, Prometheus defied Zeus and gave fire to humanity. For breaking the rule, he was chained to a mountain and tortured. Prometheus was not a real historical person, but the fear behind his story is real. Step away from the group, and you may be pushed out at first. People may call you difficult, wrong, or even dangerous. Sometimes it is only later that they realize you were pointing to something everyone else had missed. Every society needs rules, but your mind does not come with an alarm that tells you when a rule has stopped protecting people and started protecting harm. Usually, the harmful rule still looks normal. Everyone follows it. Everyone expects you to follow it. Question it, and suddenly, you become the problem. You may recognize a quieter version, the career everyone says you should want, the relationship everyone thinks looks perfect, the belief you inherited before you were old enough to examine it. How do you know when staying with a group is wisdom and when it is fear? One person standing alone is easy to dismiss, so what happens when there are two? Two people were enough to make an entire room doubt the color blue. In 1969, psychologist Serge Moscovici showed participants slides that were clearly blue, but two people working with the researchers repeatedly called them green. They never became the majority. They just refused to change their answer. Members of the majority eventually gave the same incorrect answer on about 8% of the critical trials. That sounds small, but two voices had made an obvious fact feel uncertain. Later research by psychologist Charlene Nemeth found that dissent can push groups to consider more alternatives and think less automatically. That is one advantage of standing apart. The moment someone disagrees, your brain has to do something it was avoiding. Think again. But what happens when the evidence is overwhelming and people still refuse to change? Doctors watched women stop dying after hand washing, and many still resisted the explanation. In 1847, physician Ignaz Semmelweis noticed that women were dying from childbed fever, far more often in a maternity ward staffed by doctors than one staffed by midwives. Doctors were moving from autopsies to childbirth without disinfecting their hands. Semmelweis required hand washing with a chlorinated lime solution. The death rate fell dramatically. Still, many doctors resisted him. Accepting his conclusion meant admitting something unbearable. The hands they believed were healing patients may have been killing them. The evidence did not only challenge medicine, it challenged who the doctors believed they were. You have felt a smaller version of this when someone criticized something you were proud of, and your first instinct was to defend yourself before asking whether they were right. Sometimes evidence threatens more than an idea. It threatens the story you tell about yourself. The church could restrict Galileo, but it could not make Jupiter's moons disappear. After Galileo's telescope revealed evidence that challenged the accepted universe, the Roman Inquisition forced him to recant and sentenced him to house arrest. Authority can make being right feel unsafe. You may have experienced this around a parent, teacher, boss, or anyone whose certainty made you distrust your own perception. Sometimes we do not surrender because the other person proved us wrong. We surrender because questioning them feels dangerous. But what if questioning authority costs more than freedom? Socrates was offered a way to survive. Stop asking questions. He refused. Athens accused him of corrupting the young and disrespecting the city's gods. In Plato's account, Socrates said that even if the court released him on the condition that he stop questioning people, he would not obey. Athens sentenced him to death, and Socrates drank the hemlock. The court was not only asking him to change what he did, it was asking him to surrender who he believed he was. Maybe you have never faced a courtroom, but you may have learned to become quieter around certain people because the real version of you made them uncomfortable. You hide the idea. You soften the ambition. You become easier to understand. Eventually, people accept you, but the person they accept is smaller than the person you are becoming. History can change when one person decides cooperation has become more costly than resistance. In 1955, Rosa Parks refused to surrender her bus seat to a white passenger under Montgomery's segregation laws. She was arrested. She later lost her job and received death threats. Her arrest helped ignite the Montgomery bus boycott, a 13-month protest that ended with segregation on the city's buses being ruled unconstitutional. Her refusal did not begin as a triumphant historical scene. It began as one person deciding she would no longer help an unjust system function. People who stand against the group are often dismissed first. Their ideas sound strange because they challenge what everyone else already accepts. Prometheus was a myth. But Semmelweis, Galileo, Socrates, and Rosa Parks faced very different versions of that same problem. The crowd protects what feels familiar. Standing apart gives you enough distance to notice what everyone else has stopped questioning. Most of us will never face execution, house arrest, or a national boycott. Our moments are quieter, leaving the career everyone admired, choosing a smaller wedding, questioning a belief you inherited, making art before anyone approves, saying no when acceptance requires you to abandon yourself. The stakes are different, the inner conflict is not. When everyone around you agrees on the path you should take, standing apart creates distance. And sometimes, distance is what allows you to see whether the path was ever yours. Society depends on conformity for stability, but civilization advances because some people are willing to question what everyone else has accepted. That does not mean every outsider is right, or every rule should be broken. Standing alone is not an advantage because it makes you correct. It is an advantage because it gives you the chance to think before the crowd thinks for you. Progress becomes impossible when fear of disapproval ends the investigation. So ask yourself, what have you stopped questioning because everyone around you already seems certain? And what path have you been afraid to walk because someone else might not understand it?